Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Propel webinar, all about pre-book sales and how we can increase your pre-book sales in a post-COVID world as well. I am delighted this week to be joined by 4 absolute experts in their fields from Bums on Seats. Say hi everyone, give us a wave.
Hello.
Fantastic.
Hello.
And I have to say everyone's doing so well today because it is a very, very hot day, but you are all looking fantastically glamorous as ever. So that's wonderful to see. First up, we have Amber Staynings, who is the CEO and founder of Bums on Seats. Amber, can you tell us a bit about Bums on Seats in general as a consultancy?
Absolutely. So I founded Bums on Seats in January 2019. The company has grown quite significantly in that time, which is fantastic. We are a team, a very strong team, the Bums family of 12 consultants. And within that, we have various specialisms that span the entire remit of pre-booked and advanced sales. So we offer 4 key services, and they are auditing. So we go and audit your business from a sales perspective and provide you with solutions to drive profitable sales. We do sales training, and we are very proud to be market leaders in that. And we look at training not just salespeople, but also operations people and reservations as well. So anybody that's dealing with customer inquiries would go through our sales training. We then have our white label central sales teams and our senior consultancy. So rather than implement a sales team yourself, you would use our skill set and expertise to do that, or you would work with one of my senior consultants to actually look at delivering the strategy and additional sales for a set period of time. And then the last pillar is our most recent invention, which we are calling SROP, which is our sales reopening plans. Now, obviously, very, very important at the moment, and I know that we'll touch on that through the webinar. But even without the sales reopening bit, the sales plan piece is critical. So how are we planning and identifying opportunities and new revenue streams, not just short term, but long term as well? And that's Bums on Seats.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Amber. So next up to introduce you to our next expert, we have Jennie Brooker. Now, Jennie Brooker has a wealth of experience in pre-book sales. He is our pre-book expert. Jennie, can you tell us a bit about your experience in the pre-booked hospitality world?
Yeah, so my career kind of started when actually really young. So my grandparents actually owned a few pubs in my hometown in Loughborough. So I've always kind of been immersed into hospitality. But my career really didn't start until I went to university, which is about 13 years ago now. And I worked for a well-known company called Tiger back in the day, the good old days. I started there as kind of a sales executive in a nutshell. And I worked my way up to sales manager. I was relocated to look after a couple of the London sites before my career really took its path when I went into late night London to look after kind of central sales and national account business. So then I've worked since then for companies such as Casual Dining Group, Revolution Bars, and then quite recently, obviously, Bums on Seats. And here I am.
You didn't really apply, Jamie, did you? I mean, I think it's no secret that I potentially stalked you for about 4 months to find you the perfect role. So thankfully for me,
the stalking paper. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jamie. Now, next we have the wonderful Abby-Leigh. Abby-Leigh, I know your specialism is kind of a bit more in the sort of marketing and digital side and socials and stuff as well, which, as we all know, is incredibly important going forward in hospitality. So, Abby, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience?
Of course. So, yeah, so I'm Abby. I've been with Bums on Seats for almost a year now. So I am the northwest arm of Bums on Seats. So I'm located in Manchester. My career in hospitality started about 10 years ago, just in kind of bartending jobs throughout uni and college. When I graduated uni, the club I worked in asked me to come and do a couple of days a week doing their social media and marketing for them. That was when I kind of fell in love with it and realised that this is what I wanted to do as a career. After that, I moved to London and I worked for brands such as like Novus Leisure, Proud Group and Grand Union as different roles from kind of sales exec all the way through to sales manager. After doing that for a couple of years, I decided to start my own business. So I opened a pop-up bar and events company, which I did with my business partner. And we did sort of weddings, little day festivals and corporate events. Did that for about a year and a half and then decided that I wanted to run a premises. So I applied for loads of different pub tenancies. Then I got offered the chance to run a pub down in Brighton. as like a franchise. So I moved down to Brighton and ran that pub, again with my business partner. So we were kind of co-GM, but I always looked after kind of all the social media marketing, business development. Then we got offered a second pub, so we had another site in sort of Hove. We did that for about 2.5 years, and then I kind of just wanted to change the scenery, and also I'm a northern girl at heart, so I moved back up north to Manchester, had about a month off and just kind of chilled out, and that's when I got introduced to Amber, and now here we are.
Woo!
There we are.
Lucky me. Can I just say, Abby's being very modest, because Abby has really been instrumental in making sure that the Bums on Seats brand, it stays at the forefront of everyone's minds and what that means to people. So I think I'm really delighted that Abby is on this, actually, because you're going to come at this with a slightly different angle, Abby, which I think is really important at the moment.
Brilliant. And also, how fantastic to hear. I love the stories about hospitality where everyone says, and I started doing a little bit of part-time, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? You fall in love with it after a couple of days.
So true.
Great to hear. And last but certainly not least at all is our pre-booked queen of events and corporate events, as well as weddings and everything else. It's Jennie Roe. She's got fantastic experience in a very different arm to hospitality pre-book sales than a lot of us. So Jennie, please tell us about your fantastic experience.
Sure, okay. So I started my career in operations management, and then very quickly found out that I just loved the customer service, event management, sales aspects of that role. So I asked the CEO at the time can I please just take care of that as, the predominant role in my job? And he said, yeah, go for it, no problem. So we had a really successful summer. We had a really great rooftop in Shoreditch with a 300-person capacity, so very popular with corporates. So after that, I said, well, why don't you just let me take care of Christmas across both your sites? There's cross-selling opportunity there. I love doing it anyway. And he said, go on, no problem, go for it. So I did, and then we had a fantastic Christmas. So I convinced him to let me start up a pre-booked sales team in HQ, so that we could kind of centralize everything and work across both venues to cross-sell more, and how we look how we could do that as part of a wider strategy of where the business was going. That was amazing. I loved it. It was super successful. And then I sort of fell into consultancy in 2015. I had business development roles. I had head of sales roles for companies like Proud, Rooftop Film Club, Whiting and Hammond. Project managed a big Christmas outdoor pop-up for the corporate party market in Brighton, which was amazing. Went back to my original sales role for a little bit, as I love the company so much. They doubled in size, and there was some work to be done. So I stayed with them for another year or two, and then decided, right, it's time for me to get back into consultancy, which is when I met Amber and moved down to Brighton. And as well as working for Bums, I now manage all the private hires for a venue down here, all their weddings, christenings, corporates, all that stuff. And I run a large building of Airbnbs as well for my sins. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it, Jennie. You are you're a marvel, really.
Oh,
you're a marvel.
Lots of multitasking.
It's fantastic. Well, just to quickly introduce myself. So my name's Rosie. I'm also an associate consultant for Bums on Seats. I'm here today to just kind of oversee proceedings and get some amazing information out of all these people, because we have such a wealth of different information. I have absolutely no doubt there's going to be a fantastic Q&A series for anyone looking to build their pre-book. So without further ado, let's kick off proceedings. So I have a few questions here sent in by some wonderful people who have signed up for this webinar. My first question is actually aimed at Amber. Amber, it's obviously a very overarching question, so I know that it's kind of a string thing, but what additional revenue streams and sales opportunities do we have at the moment? I think that's just such an important question for so many venues right now.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think ultimately there's a lot of venues that are going to be concerned about only having group sizes up to 6, only 2 different households. What happens with my private event spaces, which I will absolutely let Jennie answer. And I understand there's a bit of fear around, okay, but what do we do next? Are we going to be inundated with bookings? How do we fight for business? The next 3 months is going to be very tough. The best advice I can give on this question, and I'll try and keep this as brief as possible, is I keep saying it a lot, but really do go back to basics. So this is the time to review all of your bookable spaces and your capacities, and then look at all the potential occasions and reasons that a customer would choose to book with you. And by doing that exercise and literally pay and pen it, you can do it really simply. It'll be quite amazing about the different revenue streams that maybe you hadn't considered before. So things like co-working, all of that. People who are fed up of working from home that might pop in now for a coffee or an early lunch, that's going to be really important. Things like looking at the Helen Stag staycation market, stuff like that. Staycations, we're convinced, is going to be huge from probably August onwards. So there are going to be a lot of relevant elements that maybe weren't relevant before that you can tap into. But the first place to start is your back to basics list, bookable spaces, packages, and what is it that the occasions that the people would now come and visit me for. And don't forget about those key birthday and anniversary celebrations where people have been fed up of having that at home. And anybody that's got a birthday in the next 4 to 5 months, I think they're going to come out.
Absolutely. No, really good points there. And just to go over to Jennie, so we were talking a bit about private hire there, Jennie. So in terms of, we can't get away from the word COVID right now. In terms of COVID, how do you think this is going to impact on private hires? And how can people use those spaces in a different and imaginative way to increase that revenue?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that private hires will definitely bounce back. I think it's more a case of when instead of if, because I have been asked that question a lot recently. And I think in terms of the impact of COVID, broadly speaking, there's going to be major scrutiny on your terms and conditions. You'll need to have huge clarity on your force majeure clause, no quibble money back guarantee. So that's going to be really important. I don't think we're going to see buffets or canapes for a while. I think sort of like individually portioned out street food, that sort of dining is going to be really popular. I think that we're going to see smaller parties. I don't think we're going to have these major super parties where departments merge and they spend 20 grand and we have a full venue. I think it's going to be, a lot more kind of quieter than that. I think departments are going to be going out on their own. More specifically, in terms of weddings, I don't think we're going to see any receptions this year unless they're kind of small and last minute. It's just too much risk involved at the moment. All being well, I think the market will return to where it was next year, no problem at all. I think we might even see some of those quieter Sunday to Wednesday slots get filled up because a lot of venues would have been booked. The key slots would have already gone before COVID. In terms of corporates, I think there's a couple of things that we'll need to do. Very clear guidance on how you're keeping people safe. And I don't just mean, here's a document, this is what we're doing, like a tick box exercise, which will obviously be very important, but more how what you're going to do will mitigate the formality of keeping people safe. How's that going to impact the guest experience? They're going to want to know that people will still have a good time. I think there's going to need to be more tangible metrics on the return on investment versus the risk and the financial input, because people aren't going to prioritise having parties. I think there's going to be a real focus on private facilities and table service, and I think official after work drinks will probably happen more sort of in offices as delivery services become more sophisticated. But that's not to say that unofficial drinks won't carry on in the locals.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, exactly. I think in terms of private parties, that's one of the functions, the more personal functions. I think for the moment, because we've got such great weather, a lot of people will be celebrating at home in loved ones' gardens and things like that. And I think Airbnb is going to be very popular for celebrating occasions, like Amber said. And as soon as people feel it's safe, that will return to normal. I think what's going to be most interesting is how conferences and meetings will change. I think that there's going to be I think COVID has accelerated the focus on hybrid events, which is a live event mixed with sort of virtual components to it. So 500 people can sort of attend and participate in an online event, but it just won't be from a big venue sort of thing. And now that we have embraced the work from home culture, we all know how to present on Zoom and share our screens and sort out the audio problems and stuff like that. I think there's going to be an awful lot of smaller meetings taking place on Zoom wherever that's appropriate. And the last question, how to use your space now? Well, like Amber said, it's the perfect time to get your ducks in a row. So review your offer, review your pricing, your marketing, your sales strategy, do your customer journey audits. And to be honest, until we really know about more about when we can start taking private hires, I think the best thing to do with a space, if it's part of a wider sort of bar or restaurant, is just use it to increase your pre-book capacity.
Absolutely. Really, really good points there. And I really take on board what you say about, reviewing everything. It's so important to kind of take this opportunity.
Take stock.
Be able to pivot your business as well. On that kind of similar theme, we're seeing a lot of different businesses go for takeout, delivery, lots of different menus. So Jamie, in terms of being able to use those new menus and use different menus, regardless of whether it's takeout or in-house, how can we use those menus to create an actual sales opportunity for our venues?
For me, the most important element of creating a menu and using it to generate sales is the ability to sell and promote the menu or the offering on your different digital channels. By that I mean ensuring that we are communicating new menus and offers to all your agency business, to all your affiliations. Your website is really important as well to communicate to your guests. And not only that, it's for me kind of using a menu, as simple as it could be the highest GP menu in the world, but bolting that onto an experience is really key, especially to generate more sales. If you think of Heston Blumenthal, for example, you could be sold risotto at its bare basic, but the way he does it and delivers it with that theatre, you know, it sticks in your mind. And I think that moving forward should be the way of generating sales via launching new menus.
Absolutely.
I think, Jamie, you struck on a really good word, that experience. And I think everything that Jennie talks about, and Abby from the marketing side as well, we know that idea of experience isn't going anywhere. And that is really important, isn't it, when we're talking about menus and all of our offer and all of our packages and everything else. And people will come to you if you have an experience, because you then become destinational. So if people are worried about getting onto public transport to go and to come into the pubs or the bars or the restaurants, actually, if you've got a strong enough offer, they absolutely will. And it might not be that they'll be there every week, but when they go, the quality of visit and the loyalty from the customer could be really important. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
Absolutely. And when we talk about experience as well, I think, you know, the buzzword, like you were saying about the customer journey from the start, we can kind of mention that in terms of experience as well. You know, what's the experience they're getting from the word go? And as you mentioned, Amy, the kind of, you know, the thing about sort of the digital marketing side of everything is so key now. So with that in mind, Abby, I'd love to ask you, in terms of changes we're going to have to make, or we should be making, to the customer journey and the website moving forward, what recommendations do you have for people to move forward with that?
I think so. The key point here is, if you're going to be looking at your website and reviewing it, the first thing you want to make sure that you can do is you can look at your analytics. I think every single website and every single brand is going to be slightly different. You need to be able to look and review how you're doing at the minute. So once you go into your analytics, you can view your session duration, your page views, all that kind of stuff, and you can use that to assess where you're going wrong. So, for example, if you've got a high bounce rate, that means people are kind of leaving after not going on any other pages. If you've got a low session duration, that means people aren't finding what they need. So from those points, you can maybe realise maybe you need to make it clearer and need to make it simpler, that kind of stuff. Sounds obvious, but making sure that your contact or your book icons are really clear and emphasised. Checking your website speed on like websitegrader.com, making sure that it's loading quicker. I think the key thing as well with websites and customer journey is just keep it simple. I think simple websites, they load quicker, they're easier to navigate, and that eventually just, it brings a better customer journey. I think it's resisting that temptation to add and add and add and kind of make it like everything in one. I think it's being clever about what you want to say and where you want to say it is kind of the best website customer journey.
Yeah, it's
having that seamless process, like Abby said, is going to be really key, because there's so much option out there, so much choice, but being really clear in terms of what is able to be booked and what your offer is, that whole seamless customer journey is going to be really important.
It's so
absolutely. Customers are going to go on your website and they're going to look at their 3 or 4 options, and if you've got your marketing messaging around how seriously you take their safety and security, if you've got the visuals up there that can show this is the floor plan, these are your options, this is how we're dealing with 1 meter social distancing, you will be chosen above another restaurant that doesn't. And then, Abby, I know we talk about this a lot, like minimizing the amount of clicks it takes to how do I make an inquiry, and how everything should just be really seamless and easy, shouldn't it?
I think another point on that as well is with websites, like you were saying with the COVID stuff, it's got to be updated, it's got to be so current, and also you need to make sure that it works on mobiles and tablets. If it doesn't, because that's where people that's where people go on websites now. So really important.
Yeah.
Kind of the irony, isn't it? We always say, you know, keep it simple, but actually that is really the answer in so many of these cases. Keep it simple, keep it easy to use, keep it easy to understand.
Yeah.
And obviously the customer journey is so vital, because it's before they even walk in the venue, isn't it? They're getting an image and an idea of what to expect already. We already know from the guidelines coming out at the moment that pre-booked is going to be more important than it's ever been in this industry. So in terms of a central sales team, and I'm going to direct this question to Jamie, do you feel that this is now more important than ever? What are the benefits of having a central sales team? And does it work for any size of sites, whether, you know, you're a big, huge operator or someone with maybe 1, 2 or 3 sites going on?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that, and most certainly it is very adaptable depending on the size of your business. It could be, you know, a portfolio of 2 venues up to 100 or thousands of venues. And the same in terms of the key elements in the process never changes. And it is very versatile and very adaptable as a function. What I will say in terms of the benefits, you, regardless of the size of your portfolio, you have the opportunity to cross-sell in between your own collection, essentially. Therefore, you're kind of reducing the risk of losing business, because, you know, you've got that choice and you've got all the needs and the wants the customer wants and needs at this point. Another benefit for me, based on experience and kind of working in central sales team departments, is having that structure of key areas. I say that, and I mean in the way of using certain colleagues or executives to focus on different areas, such as corporate business. It could be your core trade, your occasions, your birthdays, your hen parties, and then your national account business and your tour and travel. So there's different elements that all make up a central sales team function, and they're all really important to drive sales into the business.
Yeah.
Another way of that I think is really important of the benefit of using a central sales team is because you can really control your costs and making sure there's no kind of undercutting in any way, shape or form. Your bottom line is going to be a lot healthier. And essentially, and most importantly, you've got a wealth of knowledge all under one roof.
Absolutely. No, that's
well
great.
said.
I mean, it's kind of a question out to everybody, but I suppose, does anyone have any thoughts in terms of how people are going to be needing to use their sales teams differently? Obviously, Abby, I know we really spoke about using digital marketing, using that customer journey. Do you think that there will be a way for sales teams to work a little bit differently in terms of really integrating with that digital journey? And do you think that there's also, I suppose, a way that smaller operators as well, if they've got a sales team in there, for example, but they've got limited other things to be working with, are there quick wins that they can use digitally, but with their sales teams to drive that pre-book?
Yeah, massively. I mean, I think from kind of like a marketing and social point of view, the quick wins to drive pre-booked, obviously, are just social media and just making sure you've got really good call to actions on your posts. I also think what often kind of goes like unnoticed a little bit is making sure there is a good a booking process and a customer journey from people that do inquire on social media. You need to make sure that you're checking those inboxes and you're dealing with those inquiries properly. Things like you can add on your Instagram now, you can add a reserve button on your profile that will take people straight through to your website widget, things like that. Again, if you've got limited resources as well and you're trying to run a social media campaign to drive pre-booked, there are things like Canva where you can create really good graphics for it's based next to nothing. Apps like Snapspeed as well, which will let you edit your photographs and make them look really, really professional. So if you don't have necessarily a marketing team, but you want to run a social media campaign to drive pre-books, there are ways around it that you can do it yourself, or you can get your sales teams to do it for sure.
Absolutely.
I think.
Oh yeah, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, no, I think Abs, what we've spoken a lot about the use of technology now, and customers need us to use the latest technology and talk to them in the way that they want to be spoken to when they want to be spoken to. So for me, the days of sending out big newsletter emails, just bombarding your database over and over again, completely gone. Just like the old school sales thing of knocking on doors and trying to pitch business, completely gone. So you've got to use technology and invest in technology in the right way. And I think even really small operators, whatever their budget. We don't all have millions of pounds to spend. Look at the tech side and help and your booking system, because the right booking system will do the job for you of reminding customers about the booking, following up with customers post the booking. And then if you can layer that on top of some excellent guest experience and relationship building from a sales team or an operator or a GM, that kind of follow-up call after the first visit, how did you feel comfortable? Would you rebook? So important. Let's not forget that we still need to buy, people still buy people. We still need to be building the relationship. Yeah. But the technology needs to sit across all of that. Yeah. And that's your social media stuff, your booking system, and customer feedback.
It feels like so much more of an integration now, doesn't it? I know we've spoken about
definitely
sales and marketing, and no longer these kind of two, sides of the post. It's really very much in the middle there. So it's really interesting to see how that's going to develop in future as well. Amber, you were talking there obviously about getting customers to rebook. Now, I know this is a conversation we have all the time in sales. What's the best practice? What do we do? What do we not do? To that end, I would love to pick your brain, Amber, about discounting. And do we need it in the new world, or do we have other tools that we can use instead?
Yeah, I love this question. My everyone that knows me, my immediate answer will always be, don't discount. Don't undervalue your product and offer. Don't do it, because once you do it, it's really, really hard to get out of. However, there are exceptions. So for a really good bottomless brunch offer, and dynamic rather than offer, which is seen as a discount because often that you are taking GP on it, is driving volume at off-peak times. So if you need to create dynamics that look at the times of your business that are the quietest, and therefore you can take a bit of price to do that, but do more of a value-added bundle as opposed to a percentage discount or a 2-for-1, then I don't see that there's a problem in doing that at all. But just be really careful with the brand messaging and terminology. Personally, I hate discounts, and I think customers are not going to be price sensitive. They will also not be visiting you as frequently. So whereas you may have had Sam, who comes out to you 3 times a week, Sam may only come out to you once a week. But when he comes, he will potentially spend more money. So our job is actually to look at the pre-order side and increasing that spend per head. And then let's take this back to the experience piece, right? And which is like so important. So I would look at it that way. I don't think the days of 2 steaks for 20 quid need to be here anymore, personally. And if you're good enough operationally and all of that, then there's no reason why you need to do it. But an off-peak dynamic can work really well.
Absolutely. And I think it keeps going back to that word experience, doesn't it? That's the really important thing. Every time we look at the customer experience, we need to make sure that that's the thing that's on point. And essentially that's kind of what builds the sales in the first place as well. But in terms of, the sort of, we talk about discounts and the same thing as loyalty, getting people back in and doing that. Jennie, is there any other way that we can build loyalty through sales? And I'm kind of particularly thinking about the personal element of sales, or any other ideas that you might have involving that sort of loyalty piece.
Well, I think, what Amber said, spot on, really. It's all about building relationships with people, particularly when it comes to corporate sales, because I found that corporate event managers are creatures of habit. And if you give them a great experience time and time again, they will just come back to you. I think, at the moment, we're actually launching a new sales course, and 70% of that sales course is about relationship building, because it's just so crucial to brand loyalty, because you need to build trust with people. They need to know that you'll deliver time and time again, and that's what will keep them coming back. So, if the customer gives you a call, they have a really great experience with you, you take brilliant notes, you give a great handover to ops deliver a cracking event, you call them the next day and say, how was it for you? Did you have a good time? Ask for that second booking, that second visit. They'll call you again to book. They'll probably ask for you personally. And the great thing about that is the more that circle is repeated, the stronger the brand loyalty will become.
Absolutely.
On that as well, a really good point. But going back to the 3 elements that Jennie said, which is definitely relationships, communication, and trust, are the 3 most important elements for me for loyalty.
Yeah.
is that word of mouth, which is worth its weight in gold. If you can hit all of those three elements amazingly with your brand, you're going to organically generate more loyal database within the business. So those three areas for me are key.
Absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right. It's that circle of influence, isn't it, that we talk about, which Abby will know all too well, because the digital world now, one review, one comment goes everywhere. You can use that to your advantage. And actually, Jennie and I have been doing a lot of research on the generations, and how does a baby boomer behave versus like a Gen Z, and obviously with COVID, that's even more important, because your baby boomers are going to be more fearful about going out. They are going to be more worried, whereas the Gen Zs probably don't give a toss. So then looking at the methods of communication behind, how do we then communicate? Is it a baby boomer might be picking up the phone, a Gen Z might just be some cool Instagram story around what you've done on the site to make it safe. So there's a lot of complexities there, but it's really worth investigating, isn't it, Jen? We've had a bit of fun with it all.
We really did, yeah.
That's brilliant. As long as you're having fun, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And so we've touched a lot, like you said, Amber and Jamie and Jennie, on sort of direct to customer, which is obviously the most important thing. But we kind of haven't really spoken about our third parties, in terms of our agencies and everybody else. So Jamie, in terms of third parties, and if you could you sort of do a quick explanation of what we mean by third parties? Because I know that as salespeople we go jargon and we know what that means, but just for anyone else, could you do a quick explanation of what we mean by third parties, and who you would recommend to work with your sites, group of sites, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, when I think of third parties, for me it's twofold. So you have the kind of easy kind of listing sites that are just going to generate quick footfall into your restaurants or your pubs or whatever. And then you have the more account managed kind of platforms as well. So I go back to kind of apps that I've used in the past that work really well for a central sales team function, and similarly individual sales managers and sales teams is I use things like OpenTable, really, really good. Brooker Table, which is now known as The Fork, and Quandu. They're the three main kind of booking platforms to generate easy covers. And what's really important there is the teams within the restaurants or the pubs can manage the sessions, so you can close off and block off accordingly based on obviously what's booked in already. But they're just easy drivers into your restaurants or pubs. And then secondly, I mentioned obviously the listing platforms. So there we're talking about the more account managed platforms, where you would update all your experiences, all your menus, let them know about any kind of offers that are going on, and all your packages as well. The ones that I've used and work quite closely with are Design My Night. Obviously, we all know Design My Night. And quite new to the area is Out Entry. I think they're fantastic. Fizzbox, Chili Sauce as well. And then if you were focusing more on kind of private hire and corporate events, things like High Space are fantastic to deliver those kind of elements into the business for you. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with third-party platforms, and it's twofold. But and similarly, if you wanted both of those avenues, then use both.
Absolutely.
Do you reckon, Jamie? Sorry, Rosie. Do you reckon, Jamie, that you should list with everything? Because I have this a lot. Do you go Quandu, Fork, and OpenTable and just list with all three, or should you be more tactical and choose maybe one or two that work for you? Because I think that's quite a difficult decision sometimes.
Yeah, definitely the latter. I wouldn't advise listing on every single platform going, because why would you? You saturate everything, and updating everything as and when you need to is quite time consuming. I would go and do some research on all of those platforms and work out which is best for what you need in investment, A, and B, what you want to get out of those platforms as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And just kind of on that, I think it's probably worth also saying that in terms of third parties, it's okay, to ask for help with them. We've all spoken to the people who are the account managers for different venues and stuff, and they're always so ready to help you if you need that help. So I think it's really
true.
To say, if you've never worked with them before, don't be afraid of working with them. They are there to help you. So, yeah, he's a pick up.
Yeah.
They love a chat, exactly. So it's a really, really important thing to say, I think. Fantastic. And just in terms of, we've covered the sort of the customer journey, we've covered third party, we've covered loyalty through sales. Now, loyalty through sales is also built obviously through your online presence and your communities online. We all know how important they are. We also know that you do need some sort of budget to be able to invest in your online communities. And it can be really hard figuring out how much you need and what's going to make an impact. So, Abby, if a venue had, say, 25% extra marketing budget, and I'm not going to ask you for a figure because I know that's a really difficult thing to kind of
go on, Rosie, put her on the spot.
Just that.
Give her the detail, Rosie.
Yeah, just come on, give us everything. But if a venue had just a bit more, 25% extra budget for marketing, how would you say? And I think we are focusing online because that's the way it's now.
Yeah.
How would you recommend they then spend that marketing? And how would you say that in general, where should marketing budget be best spent overall?
Mm-hmm. I think what's really, really important at the minute, and I think this is something that's become even more apparent through the whole kind of COVID lockdown situation, I think it's really, really important to define your brand. And I think you need to take the time to step back, I think, and research your demographic, research your customer, and really try and get to know. I think it kind of leads into the generational thing, kind of really get to know who your customer is, and use that to create a really strong brand. I think you need to think, what is your brand message? We have spoken quite a lot about communication and connection and stuff, and I think obviously now as the world is moving more online, it's brands need to get their communication, their connection through the digital landscape, which I think needs to have a really strong brand. And I think people want that kind of connection and creativity from brands, and I think that comes from defining your brand first of all. So I think that's an investment that I think is well worth doing, because that's something that you can pull through to all of your aspects of your business. And then obviously with social media, I think rather than just kind of going in and posting, I think it's investing and taking that step back and creating an in-depth content strategy, thinking, what is it you want to achieve? What do you want people to think about your business? What are your keywords? What are your values? And using that to create a really good content strategy that kind of engages and connects with people. I think that's really important. I think it's not about kind of soulless selling anymore. People really want to connect with a business, and I think that's where your investment is best spent, I would say, for sure.
Absolutely.
That's so true.
And especially,
Sorry, Rosie, what examples have everyone got of best practice? Because, when you talk about that, Abby, like if someone an operator was going to go and search online now to say who's doing it right, who would you say? Has anyone got any suggestions?
There is one. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say off the top of my head, and I know it's been a mixture of physical and digital, but Pizza Pilgrims at the moment are absolutely smashing it. And I think a lot of what we call user-generated content, so they're engaging with their audience, and then they're being able to kind of put that onto their socials as well. So for me, they're fantastic.
Yeah. I was going to say there's a venue in Manchester called Albert Slosh that's owned by Mission Mars, and just the way that they've done all of their social media and even their newsletters and everything through this has just been so on point. They have that brand message of the fact that they're fun, and they've got you know exactly what kind of venue it is from everything that they've done digitally. I just think if you go and have a look at a good example of social media, have a little look at theirs, because they're really, really good. I think they're up there for sure.
And then for me, quite similar to Abby, there is Inception Group and Fog, etc. The way they've kind of reinvented their platform with COVID in mind, having and they're really fitting into the individual venues themselves and what their brand represents, and then working a way around that. I think the way they've done that, communicated to their guests and their visuals and their identity is fantastic.
Yeah,
I think for me, and we talk about it all the time, don't we? I think Brewdog have just smashed it. I think they've used this time to basically really show people what their brand values are. They've offered 50% to the NHS, or 50% off the NHS, their products over the NHS and emergency services, which is amazing. They gave out free hand sanitizers. They've been really sort of keeping in touch with their customers. They've shown genuine empathy. And I just know that for me personally, I feel like I now associate that brand even more positively than I did do before. And I already loved Brewdog, but every time I see another post from them, I'm like, oh, it's just really,
yes,
smashed it. You know, we're always
nailed it.
Yeah, exactly.
What they're doing with the
true.
sustainability is amazing. It's those I see their own beer trucks.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
No,
they're doing a lot with sustainability as well, actually, which are
very important at the moment.
Which is on our website.
That's what we like. Absolutely. And so we've obviously talked about the online element and the social element, which is really important. But in terms of venues, Jennie, coming away from COVID, how would you say that venues can make themselves stand out from the competition? Because at the moment, obviously, everyone wants those bookings. So how are we going to make ourselves stand out?
That is $1 million question, isn't it? This is why I'm here. No pressure. Okay, so right. I think the first thing is to look at what you're offering, first of all. Is your offer on trend for your target market? Is it, I mean, it's really important that it stays relevant, whatever that means for you. I think that we've talked about the experience a lot, but I mean, it's just so important. So if you can't provide that kind of really super experience aspect of things, then partner up with people who can, because a unique experience is a really good seller. Find out what your USP is. What makes your venue? What's so great about it? Why is it different? And really go in on that side of things. And also, more generally, are you really making the most of your space? So have you got this little sort of side garden that's used for smokers? Could you put down astroturf and put beautiful festoon lights up and a few plant pots and kind of create something around what you already have? I think flexibility is really important, obviously not just in terms of your T's and C's at the moment, but in terms of what you can offer, what can that space actually become? So if you are absolutely smashing the corporate party market, have you shown people what that space can do for a wedding or a meeting or a weekend function, birthday parties, for example? In terms of flexibility, price-wise, market research to make sure that you are positioned correctly, and also look at how you structure your hires. So can you offer a dry hire option and allow external catering to provide people with extra flexibility? We all know that dry hires generate really good bottom line profit. Can you charge them a higher fee just to cover your opening costs and your overheads? And then, you know, if the bar takes a certain amount, you'll give that higher fee back to the customer. And I think we've touched on this already, but really importantly, really crucially, how are you actually handling those inquiries? You can have an amazing space, but you can still lose business to the competition. I would do a customer journey audit and think about whether you would actually book that venue. And you can stand out by getting back to people, you know, efficiently, being personable. Don't just send out a generic reply with costs and some pictures. You know, write a reply that's bespoke to their wants and needs, specific to them. Use sophisticated visual aids. We've talked about how important digital marketing is now, and that really extends to when you're trying to actually convert an inquiry. People want to imagine what it's like to be there. Beautifully designed brochures and menus that are on brand. Showcase your venue in its best light. Any videography, photography you have that can really help to set the scene, because you know, people need to be excited about booking your venue at the end of the day. And if you create an experience for them, and if you show that you value their business, then they're more likely to book with you. And I think my final tip would be, if you haven't invested in virtual tour technology, do it now. 100%, because people, they can actually take themselves through the venue. They can imagine themselves, you know, in various sections of the venue. They can think, oh, I'll put the banner up there and the balloons there. So without you having to go through site visits, you know, you can use that as a second stage. You can use a virtual tour to really get them interested first.
Absolutely.
And what you mentioned there, Jennie, and I think it's really important, is do the customer journey yourself.
Exactly. Take yourself through that process.
You find yourself not wanting to book, why not? Do that whole order yourself. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah.
And
also,
innovation, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we do need to look at how we can kind of, attract different audiences and new audiences now in the pre-booked field, because obviously we're missing, a huge side of what we do, which is the corporate booking stuff, which isn't going to be, like you said earlier, Jenny, the big corporate bookers, we're not going to see them for a while. So Amber, do you think there's a way that we can replace that corporate booking culture with the working from home culture? Is there anything we can do there to kind of increase the revenue?
Yeah, and I will answer this quickly, but I think ultimately offices are not going to come back into full capacity anytime soon. If ever, Facebook and Google, 12 months will be working from home. But people will still want spaces to work. They won't want to be stuck in their houses working 5 days a week. People will still meet up after the working hour for drinks. I still think that will happen, just in smaller group sizes. So I think, again, it's just about extending, looking at your off-peak times and looking at your whole business model, as opposed to relying on the big office around the corner that will guarantee come to you. So you do need to work a bit harder. But there's, again, and you replace it with other elements of sales opportunities, which we've already discussed. So yeah, don't worry, it will come back. But we know that people won't behave in the same way. We know that us as a team will always work remotely moving forward on many occasions. So it's just about thinking differently, to be honest.
Fantastic.
But yeah,
absolutely.
Good.
Brilliant, fantastic. Well, I'm afraid that's kind of all we've got time for.
No.
I know.
Question.
We're having so much fun. I tell you what, very, very quickly before we finish, it would be fantastic if we could just get a little soundbite from everybody, just a tiny piece of advice, a one-liner about the first thing everyone should go away and do after they've watched this webinar, if you run a venue, if you're in a sales team. So the first thing you'd recommend they go and do. So if I can start, Jamie, can I start with you? Just a one sentence, what everyone should go and do first of all.
I'm going to steal Jenny's idea, actually. Is do your own customer journey. Act as if you're a customer. Do that whole journey from looking at your offer and making the booking as well. And then look at that whole journey and see whether there's anything that you could really add value to.
Fantastic, thank you. Abby-Leigh, what have you got to say? What's your soundbite?
I would say get to know your customer as much as you can. Research who your demographic customers are, and then use that to define your brand and to create a really engaging content strategy for your social media.
Brilliant, thank you. Jenny, what's your soundbite of the day?
Mine would be, if you are a big event venue, big private hire venue, look at how you can create a safe shared experience by kind of separating your venue into sections and privatizing as much of the facilities within those sections as you can. So obviously you can't put a toilet in each section, but you could put a cloakroom rail in there. And I think that's probably going to be key to kind of, with Christmas parties coming up and everything, I think that's going to be really key to generating the revenue and trying to kind of get back up to speed with where we would have been last year.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, leave you with the final word of the day. What's your piece?
Yes. Back to basics, genuinely. Review current spaces, current packages, current offer, and just go back to basics. And then start shouting about it now. Do not delay. Sell Christmas, sell next year. Go for it.
Go for it. Really, really good advice. Thank you so much, everybody.
What's yours, Rosie?
Mine?
Yeah, you can't get away.
You know what? Mine's going to be really simple. Mine's going to be, don't forget to be personable. Don't forget, like you said, Amber, people buy from people. So get on the phones, get to know people and build those relationships. That's going to be
key.
Relationships, trust.
There you go. Fantastic.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's been a fantastic webinar. Thank you to you guys at home, and thank you to our wonderful experts here at Bums on Seats. And don't forget, obviously, we do have the sales reopening plans and the miracle training, which is about to go live. So if you have any questions about that, please do email in. The email address is contact@bumsonseats.org. Thank you very much, everybody.